we have Contessa with us today. She's my sister, and she has a beautiful little girl named Luna. She's going to be one next weekend, which is crazy.
Like it will
Um,
from tomorrow.
yeah, yeah, which is crazy because I felt like I was just there for the birth.
I know,
Um,
me too.
I know, but um, she's going to be one, and Contessa or Tessie is what I call her. She went through a process that, not all of us go through to have their baby. And it's more common than women know, but it's not easy to talk about for some people. And it's not talked about a lot. And, it's the fertility issues that a lot of women go through. Which causes a lot of different emotions in the mom, but also in the people that they talk to. People generally feel like they don't know what to say. They don't know how to react, probably because they haven't been through it, but also because it's not talked about, you kind of don't know what to say.
Hmm.
So we have Contessa, and she's going to tell us about her story and that process and how she got to where she is now with her beautiful girl. So start us out from the beginning. Well, actually, tell us about you and what you do and how it is right now with Luna.
Sure. So see, I don't even know where to start. My husband Will and Luna and I live in the DC metro area. I'm usually with like fertility, everybody wants to know how old you are. So I am 35, going on 36 this year. Um, and I do web design. I work for a company in DC. I work in DC. Um, and right now, pandemic wise, we've just been home. So we're not really doing a whole lot these days other than, um, I don't know, just hanging out a lot at home, doing a whole lot more cooking, uh,
Mhm.
and going on daily walks.
It's like a little bit outside, a lot inside.
Yeah.
Yeah, awesome. So how is Luna today? Like what's her latest milestone that you guys have enjoyed her doing or not enjoyed? Some milestones are not exciting, like they're kind of stressful.
Yeah.
Hmm.
It can be. I mean, I think for the most part, we're like excited with every new thing that she's doing. Um, gosh, today, let's see, today, well, so lately we've had to kind of restart the whole sleep training thing. And we didn't really do a whole lot of it early on. And when she hit about 6 months, um, I guess she hit like a regression. And so we did some sleep training then. And um, and then it helped because I was waking up with her every hour or so. Um, but then, of course, like now we're home all the time, and I'm like
Hmm.
nursing her, um, with no bottles and everything. And um, I started nursing her back to sleep as a habit, and so that I think led to her waking up throughout the night again. Um, so all that to say, the last couple of days she's been sleeping through the night again, which
Yay.
is very exciting. Yeah, um, yeah, that's which when she's getting better sleep, then we're getting better sleep, and we're all
Oh
just
yeah.
in better moods during the day. So
It's hard to stop nursing in the middle of the night if it's what gets her to go to sleep. It's hard not to do it.
yeah.
Um, well, let's start from the beginning, I guess. Like the beginning of your journey as you know it, from when you realized the infertility was happening and that you were having some issues with fertility. Like what was the first step or the first time you kind of recognized it?
Hmm. Well, so Will and I pretty much talked about wanting to start trying to have kids right after we got married, which is 2015. Um, and so I mentioned that to my OB when I went for my regular checkup. But I also mentioned that the times when I stopped taking my birth control that I would notice that I just wouldn't have my periods for like, it could be up to 3 months at a time. I would just have nothing. And that's always been like a thing for me. Like even going way back to like when I was a teenager, like when I was like 18 or 19, um, I had I had this really bad bout of anemia, which you might remember,
Mm-hmm.
where the doctor basically said that like it was because my periods were so irregular. I would have like nothing for 3 months, but then sometimes I would have a period that would last 3 months or be like super heavy. And I think the super heaviness kind of pretty much like drained me. And so like I was super low on iron at some point and I had to, like I was like near passing out at times. And so I had to kind of take supplements and get myself back up. And one of the solutions to that was putting me on birth control, which would regulate my cycle and I wouldn't have those episodes anymore, which I didn't. Um, but clearly it didn't fix the problem. It just kind of managed it or
Like a band-aid in a way.
hid it. Huh?
Like a band-aid in a
Yeah.
way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I mentioned that to my doctor. And so she had the foresight to just be like, oh, well, let's just do a full, panel and get like test all of your levels, all of your hormone levels, and which were like I don't know, there was they took so much blood. It was like I guess they test your glucose levels, your testosterone levels, estrogen. Testosterone is an important one though. I remember insulin, thyroid. Um, those are the only ones that I remember off the top of my head, but those are all like pretty important and could affect your fertility. And I think she suspected that I had PCOS
Mm-hmm.
because that's a pretty common um, diagnosis for women who have irregular cycles. Um, some women can also just have irregular cycles and not actually have PCOS, but that's what she was kind of testing for. Um, but everything came back fine. She said she still thought I had some sort of insulin resistance though, which is kind of hard to test, I guess. Because my insulin levels came back normal, my blood sugar came back normal. But she put me on metformin anyway, which is actually a medicine for diabetes, but it can help make your body less resistant to insulin, meaning it'll use your insulin better. And I guess the goal to then like fix your fertility, fix for your fertility.
Mm-hmm.
I was on that for a while. It's not great when you first get on it. It kind of sucks actually. It mostly like you get really bad stomach aches. It's just not good to drink while you're on that medicine. It can like really drop your blood sugar, which I experienced a couple times, and then
Huh.
so then I had to kind of just know not to drink much. Um, and so I was on that for a while, and I actually saw my cycles get closer to normal. Like instead of being like 55 days, or actually instead of being like kind of seesawing between lengths of time,
Mm-hmm.
it actually started to get consistent where it would be like 45 days long,
Wow.
which, a normal, well, quote, normal one is around 28 days long. Um, and but that was like a win for me. So, but we started trying using like the, what are those, ovulation strips.
Mm.
Um,
Yep.
and those are so annoying. You become like a slave to those things, or you have to take it.
Yeah.
And like because for me, I didn't know um, when I was going to ovulate because my cycles were so irregular
Mm-hmm.
that I was just using them every day, and I spent so much money on those things.
They can be expensive.
Yeah, and like I shelled out for the more expensive ones that like blink the happy face because I didn't know how to read like the cheap strips. You don't
With
know
the
how to
lines.
read those lines. Yeah.
Yeah, some of them are faded, and then it looks like, oh, maybe it's a yes, maybe it's a no. Who knows?
And like on the box, it's like it has to be darker or as dark as the control. I'm like, but how can you tell? It's just
Yeah, I know. I feel like they should have a little light that you could put on just so you know, and like the light should come with the box.
yeah,
Yeah, it's
right. Yeah, something.
mhm.
Um,
Now, did you ever use, I know some people use like an ovulation tracking app or, a period tracking app. Did
yeah,
you find that those helped at all? Or were
yeah,
they,
yeah. No, those are helpful. I used Glow, um, and I started using it like maybe even before, mostly just so I could track my
Mhm,
periods, so that when I go to the doctor's office and they ask when was your last period, I can like pull it up because I didn't know otherwise,
mhm,
because it was just never consistent. So yeah, so I used that. That was really helpful. Um, and I think I ended up paying for like the premium so I can like see the chart, and I
mhm.
can like, it was kind of neat because it would visually actually show me like when I would say no, no, and then it would tell me when my period was, and then actually show me those days when I would be ovulating. Because like you don't really, at least I didn't really understand how my body works, and so I started doing this. That like there's like kind of a small window when you can get pregnant in a month or
Yeah.
in the time of your cycle. Um, so this was like a huge learning experience for me.
Mhm. Yeah,
um,
I didn't know that either until I was trying to get pregnant, which is kind of crazy when you think about it in hindsight that like a lot
yeah,
of women don't know about their bodies,
yeah,
and it's like it's not really taught in full detail in high school or middle school or elementary school. And I think that's where it kind of starts, where you can know these
yeah,
things. And then going into that process, you at least, know that, okay, I should track this.
right.
I should tell my doctor this. I should ask these questions. And you kind of go into it blind in a way.
Yeah, yeah. That's how I felt because I was like, oh, I just stopped taking my birth control and start taking prenatals, right? She's like, I don't know. Um, I also started taking my temperature. I don't know if you did that. Um,
Mhm.
did you do that?
No, I never even thought to do it.
So it's this I thought was kind of cool.
Mhm.
But you take your temperature. It was kind of annoying though because you have to take your temperature every day at the same time, first thing in the morning before you get up, because you want your like, it's called your basal body temperature. So it's like your body at its base before you start moving. Because once you start moving, you like create energy, you create heat, you kind of warm up.
Hmm.
So you have to take your temperature right before you get up. Um, and that's another thing that you can track in the app. And so it'll show you um, when your temperature spikes.
Hmm.
That means you had just ovulated, and then it'll come back down afterwards. So the annoying part is that you don't know you've ovulated doing that method until it's
Till it's
already,
over.
yeah, until it's
That's
already.
frustrating.
But what it does tell you over time is like it'll show you that pattern and tell you approximately when you will ovulate, so you know when to expect it next
Okay.
time. So that ended up being helpful, and that's actually what helped to show me that my once I was on the metformin that my cycles were getting regular again.
Hmm.
Um, so we did that for, what was that, maybe 6 months. Well, we wanted to start right after we got married, and then I got a job at the White House. And so I then I was like, well, I don't want to end up being pregnant and then not be able to finish out my time, because it was the last year of Obama's presidency, um, and I only had a year, and I was like, well, I don't want to end up having to leave before it was over.
Coolest job ever, by the way.
It was pretty cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. So then I think maybe towards the end of that, I was like, okay, you know, if I get pregnant now, it's fine. it'll happen, you know, like after um, after I'm out of here, and you know, little did I know it would take a little longer than that. So
Mhm.
I think it was. So we did that. Oh right. So after maybe 6 months of actually being on metformin, like consistently, and having no success, like never got a positive pregnancy test. So I talked to my doctor again. She said she wants to start me on Clomid.
Mhm.
And so that is a pill that you take the first, no, the begin, like your first week of your cycle. So your period, when you first get your period, is day one of your cycle. Um, so you usually take it between, I think I took it between days 3 and 7. So you take
Okay.
one pill each day. Um, and that's supposed to pretty much trigger ovulation in your body. Um,
So it's responsible for like dropping eggs. Is that kind of what it does? I'm
yeah,
not even sure what Clomid does.
no, I'm trying to remember exactly. I mean, basically,
Okay.
it like kind of, I want to say it
Pushes ovulation.
starts kickstarts the process, because
Okay.
you ovulate normally on day 14. So I take it days 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then a week later
Hmm.
I should ovulate. It didn't always happen that way. I think I even on the Clomid I would ovulate on day like 24 or something like that. Um, and so we took that for 3 months. Like like I had 3 doses of it, and it was never. I knew it was kind of working. I think because I would, like, when I would ovulate, I would actually feel it. Like it was like my ovaries would be like super swollen or something. I
Oh,
would feel
wow.
like a big painful bubble or something. I don't know how to
Like
explain.
very bloated.
Yeah, like bloated, but then also like a sharp pain in my side.
Oh,
Um,
wow.
that's how I knew. Um, so it was interesting that it was working. It was just not resulting in a pregnancy.
Hmm.
Um, and so she recommended only, and I think it's like normal protocol to only do like 3 cycles of that before it can end up just not being uh, not working anymore after that. So she said if you do it for 3 cycles and it doesn't work, then I'm referring you to a reproductive endocrinologist, which is when you go to a fertility clinic, basically.
Hmm.
So that's when we ended up going to the fertility clinic. Was after those 3 cycles. Um, I almost wish we just did all this earlier, but
How
um,
would you know?
wait, you wouldn't know because I like with every step you kind of have to take you want to know that you did all you could before you had to move on to more.
And they
um,
probably would have made you do those steps, even going
yeah,
to the fertility clinic.
I
Now,
think
did you stop all the medications before you went to the fertility clinic, or were you still doing them?
basically the day I like on my third round of Clomid, the day I got my period, when I knew that it didn't work again, like, oh, that was actually Christmas Day that year, and then the next day I called Shady Grove.
I would
um,
too.
yeah, and so yeah, so I was still taking the metformin. I just kept taking it. I even took it throughout all of my fertility treatments,
Hmm.
um, but I only took the Clomid those 3 times. So then we were at the fertility clinic. Um, I did a ton. Like, there's this really cool website called fertilityIQ.com where you can rate your fertility doctor. And so
Oh.
that's where I found my fertility doctor, actually. He had a whole lot of good reviews. I normally wouldn't see a male doctor, but
Hmm.
everybody seemed to love him so much. So I was like, we might as
Yeah.
well. Um, and our first meeting with him was really great. Like um, he had really good bedside manner. He obviously knew what he was talking about. like participated in studies about PCOS, even though I was technically not diagnosed with PCOS. Actually, he explained to us that there are like three. There's like a set of criteria that you have to meet. You have to have 3 out of the 5 or something to actually be diagnosed with PCOS. You have to have well, it's called polycystic ovarian syndrome. So you have to have like one of the most common side or symptoms is that you have this what they call a string of pearls, which is like multiple cysts within your ovaries, and they tend to like look like little circles,
Like a beaded
all
necklace in a way.
yeah, like lining your ovaries. I didn't
Wow.
have that. And I also did not have elevated testosterone levels, which is another one. Um, Hirsutism, which is when you have like facial hair.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and maybe, I don't know if you lump acne in there with that, but apparently those two are common. And I think your insulin levels
Mm-hmm.
is another one. I don't know. I don't know if that was 5, but in any case, I didn't really,
Sounded like 5.
yeah, I didn't need any of them
Hmm.
other than the irregular cycles. I think that was maybe that was the last one. That's the only one really. So he technically said I didn't have PCOS, and he was like, you could maybe stop the metformin. I was
Mm-hmm.
like, well, I kind of saw that it was at least doing something. So then
Yeah.
he, okay, guess you could stay on it.
Something's better than nothing. Yeah.
No, like I'm gonna keep doing it because at least that was the one thing that I saw change.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but what? So he started me on a protocol for IUI, which is intrauterine insemination.
Mm-hmm.
If you've ever seen Jane the Virgin, that's that's how she accidentally got pregnant.
Yep. Love that show. R.I.P.
I know,
I love that show.
not Jane, but the show.
Right.
Uh,
Right.
so, well, first they did another set of blood work just so that they have an updated um, version of it, and they do genetic testing,
Mm-hmm.
um, where at least I like on me just to rule out any like major genetic diseases, I guess, that we could potentially pass on.
Mm-hmm.
And as long as, and I had done it like a couple years past because my OB had suggested I do it. Um, and since mine came back clean, they didn't bother to do will because they said the only time um, it matters is if like you both have the same one, and then you're most likely to pass it
Hmm.
on. Right. So we started the IUI process. We did 4 rounds of that. Normally we would only do. Like originally suggested doing 3, and then if that didn't work after 3, then we'd move on to IVF. But on the third one, I got a very, very, very low positive, which they call a chemical pregnancy,
Mm-hmm.
another term for like early miscarriage, like very, very early, as in like the day, like the day that you could test. It just didn't, or I guess it's like the egg and the sperm met, but then they didn't properly attach maybe or
Mm-hmm.
something. Like very early in the process, it just failed.
I'd
Um,
never heard of that term until you mentioned it to me, which is
yeah.
another like, why why don't we know this term? Because it happens. Now that I've met a couple moms, like I know a lot that have had a chemical pregnancy, and you don't know until they feel comfortable sharing it with you. But
Mm,
I feel like this is something that, since it happens more commonly than some people know, we should learn about this. Like we should know this. We should know what that is.
yeah. I
Wow.
mean, like you wouldn't know, like anybody, it could happen to anybody, and you just
Mhm.
wouldn't know because you're just not having your blood drawn all the time, you
Yeah.
know?
Mhm.
Um, and like I think, yeah, that time I took a pregnancy test. I think I didn't every time because I
Hmm.
wanted to it, they would they would take my blood and give me like an official answer whether I was pregnant or not, and what, like, exactly what my HCG levels were. Um, and sometimes I would test, sometimes I wouldn't, because it's like, why why
Yeah.
test? But there are some people that will, like, after the IUI, like, test every day so they can kind of see. It's like there's
Hmm.
kind of no point until, because you could get false positives too.
Hmm.
And so that time I did test, and I saw like the faintest of lines. And I
Yeah.
thought it was there, but I wasn't sure. And like Will was looking at it and squinting, and these were the cheaper ones, so we were just trying to like decipher the lines. And so we were like holding it up and squinting. Will took one and he peed on it so that we could have a control.
Yeah.
Which I was like, that's so smart, because like at least we can have something to compare it to, so we know
Yes.
it's there. Definitely, it's not. So we determined it was like there, but like really faint. Um,
Comes back to the lines again. I mean, just the happy face and the sad face,
I know.
it's just makes it easier.
Yes or no, I guess.
Hmm.
But so yeah, so then the next day was my blood test, and that's when they told me. I was like, well, at least I knew the line was there.
Hmm.
wasn't just imagining it.
Right.
Um, so then, because we got so close with that one, I think we were feeling like, well, we got to try one more time, because maybe we
Hmm.
almost had it. So we tried one more time, and then that just was, that didn't work at all. So um, it took a couple months in between, because I was like, I just need a break from taking all the medications. Because for the
Hmm.
IUIs, you still take um, some medications in the same way that I took the Clomid, except
Hmm.
they gave me a different one, which I can't remember the name now. Um, but it's a different one. It's actually indicated for breast cancer,
Huh.
but it another side effect of it is that uh, it helps you ovulate.
Hmm.
And so it did the same thing that Clomid did, but it didn't have some of the other like mood swinging side effects that Clomid did. Like Clomid, like, it's pretty infamous. Like all the other women that I've like met online who've also taken Clomid, we all talk about how we turned into the Clomid monster.
Yeah.
um,
Tell me about like what is that like?
it just like it, trying to remember, because it's been like a few years now, but um, definitely would feel um, just irritable, I think.
Hmm.
Um, and like stress would affect me more. Um, I would have like stress would cause anxiety. Um, like sometimes I would have strong strong bouts of it where like I'll be at work and like it would hit me and like in the middle of a project, which is the worst time because like
Hmm.
I really need to focus, but then I can't focus because I'm like have like the feeling in the pit of my stomach, and like I like my whole body feels heavy, and like I just can't concentrate on anything else.
Hmm.
Um, and then there were other times where it would be less severe, but just constant. Like I would just feel it for days at a time.
Hmm.
Um, and that was mostly with Clomid, I think. Um, Not as much with the other one, because the
Hmm.
other one, which I wish I could remember the name now, the other one, that my doctor said that it your body metabolizes it faster, so it doesn't. Um, so after you've taken it, it kind of like your whatever side effects you experience will kind of go away a lot quicker.
Hmm.
Clomid, I would take it from days 3 to 7, and then until the end of the month, I'm like still feeling the side effects of it.
Yeah. So then after Clomid, you were saying you guys were on the last bout of IUI,
Mm,
and you were saying that didn't work,
yeah.
right?
Yeah. So then I took a couple months often between. I explored acupuncture because a lot of other women swore by it,
Mm-hmm.
um, and including for fertility. I was like, I don't know how, but okay. Um, so I went and saw a guy who is known for like using acupuncture to treat fertility, including other things, but like he's pretty well versed in fertility. Um, like when I was talking to him and I was telling him about all my medications, he was like, "Oh yeah, you got to do all these things," and
Mm-hmm.
he's also giving me nutrition advice. He gave me like some Chinese herbs to drink as like a tea, which was gross.
Mm-hmm.
But I did it for a while. Um, and then I was gonna keep doing it once we moved into IVF, um, because they say like if you can do acupuncture around like when you do your transfers or when you do your retrievals,
Mm-hmm.
um, to like reduce stress. But then I kind of got the sense that he wanted me to keep trying on my own and not do IVF. And I was like, no,
Oh,
no, I've had enough of that. Like I'm
yeah.
not going to keep doing this. Um, so I didn't go back to him. I just did the IVF.
Yeah.
Um, so we started IVF the end of August of 2018. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
2018. Um, and so yeah, that's like a whole different thing than just taking a few pills in the beginning of your cycle, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Um, because it involves a bunch of injections. Um, we Once we said we were ready, they told us all the medications that we would be taking, and ordered them, and they got shipped to the house in like this big box, this big like box with like a bunch of ice packs and stuff, and you had to put some of
Whoa.
them in the fridge. And yeah,
Kind of intimidating.
it kind of was, but
Yeah.
also I've been like ended up finding community online,
Mm-hmm.
'cause I didn't really know a whole lot of people, if any, actually in real life who had done any of this. And
Mm-hmm.
so I joined a lot of Facebook groups, um, and followed a bunch of people on Instagram. And I think actually the first time I started like talking with other women was actually within the Glow app.
Hmm.
There's a whole forum section, and there are lots of different topics, and some of them were like for infertility related. Um, Eventually, I moved on to Facebook, and so I had seen like all these other women getting their boxes. It
Mm-hmm.
almost ended up being like a weird like, ooh, I'm doing my unboxing of my IVF injections, guys. It's here.
Interesting. So you kind of knew what to expect when you got the box at least, or like before even getting the box, you kind of knew like this would be a
Yeah,
step.
yeah.
Yeah.
Like
Okay.
once all the medications were there, at that point, I had done so much reading about. I mean, like before we even got to IVF, before we even got to the fertility clinic,
Mm-hmm.
you know, because I didn't really have a diagnosis, I was trying to figure out what was wrong. And so I
Mm-hmm.
ended up reading about all the various um, types of, you know, conditions that can cause infertility, that I almost became like an expert. I was
Mm-hmm.
like, I could have any one of these things. So I need to know all about all of them.
Yeah.
And all about all the medications that you possibly need, all the possible procedures you could possibly do. Um, by the time we got there, like you know, like when I went to the fertility clinic to do my first IUI, the nurse was like, "You don't seem very nervous. I thought this was like your, second or third." And I was like, "No, this is my first. I'm ready." um,
It's
so yeah,
also they have those communities online though, because I think yeah, you don't know a lot of people in person, or they don't want to talk about it. And
yeah,
sometimes the anonymity, I think,
mm,
helps people be transparent.
yeah, it
Yeah.
definitely does. So I guess the whole idea of IVF is that you take all these medications that um, signal your body to create a lot of follicles, which then create your eggs. So every month, right, every woman creates at least one, and that drops an egg. And that's kind of that's when you ovulate. Sometimes you can create two. Sometimes that's how you end up with fraternal twins, if they drop both eggs. With IVF, they want you to make a lot, because then they want to harvest all of them. And the whole goal is that they get as much eggs from you as you will make. And then they get your sperm from your partner. And then they go into the embryologist will go into their lab and find they'll look at your eggs, make sure the ones that are mature are ready, and then there will be some likely that like weren't ready, or like had like an abnormality or something, so then those aren't included. And then of the sperm, they also do the same thing, where they just find the healthiest and don't include the ones that, like, they put it through a process where they call it sperm washing, to basically get all the healthiest ones, all the healthiest eggs, all the healthiest sperm, and then match them up. um, and then you wait 5 days for them to like do their thing, which is basically what they do in your body, but they are just doing it in a controlled place in the lab. And then whichever ones make it at the end of that process, those are the embryos. And if they're all healthy, then those are the ones that you use to transfer and or freeze, if you have more than one. It makes me crazy to think that, like, for so many months we're just trying and trying and trying, and like it's possible that any one of those times my egg was abnormal, his sperm was not right, and like, it's like a game of chance. So when you do IVF, it kind of eliminates all of those like possibilities for it to fail, and only gives you chances for success. But it's a really in-depth process, which is why it's very expensive. We're very lucky that we had good insurance through Will's work that covered infertility. Otherwise, I don't know. I don't know how people can do it without it. So that's, we did a whole cocktail of injections to get my body to produce all of those follicles. Probably because I have some little bit of PCOS or something, but I'd create a lot of follicles. I had a lot by the end, and they ended up harvesting 13 eggs, and then 11 were mature or something like that. And all of them fertilized.
Is that unusual?
I think so. Because, well, I don't know. I mean, I guess I'm comparing myself to all the other people I've seen on the internet, but usually women with PCOS tend to be the ones that have a ton, which are very lucky, because there are a lot of women who like can't make that many, or they'll go through a cycle where they'll get 5, but then on day 5 none of them made it.
Wow.
Or they're only left with one, and they have one chance, and then maybe that chance doesn't work, and so yeah, we felt really lucky that we got that. But one of the side effects of that was hyperstimulation, which is when your body creates so many that then it almost like puts it into overdrive. And so after my retrieval, and kind of a side effect of one of the medicines that they gave me, I ended up with called OHSS for short, but ovarian hyperstimulation syndrome, where basically my ovaries were leaking fluid into like my stomach or like my abdomen area.
That sounds painful.
It was. I mean, it was it was painful and like really uncomfortable, and I was just like incredibly bloated.
Mhm.
Like I almost looked pregnant. And I was like, "No, but we didn't even do the thing yet. Like we didn't even do
Yeah.
the transfer yet." Um, and so I was really bloated. And then, but then like after a week or so, I started to feel better.
Mhm.
Um, and or like no, it was 5 days, because like 5 days later was when um, they said that, or they gave me the news that all 11 of them fertilized. Um,
Yay.
yeah, yeah, that was very
That's
exciting.
exciting.
Yeah, because for a lot of people, again, like half of them could make it or something like
Mhm.
that. So then that's when we transferred. You can do a fresh transfer, which is, you know, I guess they're fresh, or you can wait and do a frozen transfer. So they would take all those embryos, freeze them, and then you can try a next cycle. Um, so we ended up doing a fresh transfer because my doctor said, "You're healthy. We think your hyperstimulation seems to be going away. So we'll just go ahead and do it. I think you'll be fine." So we did it. We did the transfer of what the embryologist determined was the best one. We didn't know what the genders of all of them were. We didn't do, you can do genetic testing of the embryos, um, but we didn't. They said they didn't. I think they only do them for like cases where, I don't know, like more severe cases, or if you are a lot older,
Mhm.
there's more of a chance that they're abnormal. So, but they were like, "You're young, you'll be fine." Um, so, so it's not like we chose which one. We had no
Mhm.
idea. The gender and everything was still a surprise later. Oh, I guess spoiler alert, it worked. Um, so, so yeah, so after I transferred, a few days later, I started to feel the hyperstimulation coming back, which I thought was weird. I didn't like, that was like one thing that I was actually surprised by. The internet didn't tell me that that was going to happen. I
Mhm.
didn't know that it could come back. Um, so of course I'm like frantically Googling it. Um, and like the one thing I found was that you could be pregnant. And I was like, oh.
Interesting.
So, um, so I called the doctor, and so uh, I had gone to get my blood drawn to like, and like the typical protocols. They draw your blood, check your HCG, and then you go into a room and they do an ultrasound to like check your ovaries and everything.
Mhm.
Um, and I was like, it's coming back, and it doesn't, it's starting to feel worse than before. Um, and so uh, the doctor, well, at first he actually I think he forgot that he did the transfer, because he was like, it should resolve itself by the time you get your period. But I was like, or hopefully not, right?
Right.
We did the like Will was like, no, we transferred.
We don't want her to have her period.
Yeah, yeah. And he was like, oh, uh, maybe we'll do a pregnancy test. Yeah, let's just go send you back over there. We'll test your HCG.
Mhm.
Um, and then as I was about to leave, he was like, I think this is a good thing. I think this might be a good thing. Like, hopefully. So we'll let you know. But just drink a lot of Gatorade, because the Gatorade is supposed to kind of help flush all the fluid out that's, building up and everything.
Mhm.
So yeah, so then we got the call later that afternoon, and then we were actually pregnant. That was like the
Yay.
real positive that we got. And like my level was really high.
Mhm.
It was like in the hundreds, whereas the one with the chemical pregnancy was a 5. If
Mhm.
to compare. Um, yeah. So then, so that was very exciting, but also a little scary, because I was still having those I was still experiencing the OHSS, which lasted like a couple of weeks. Um, so they told me to eat a lot of protein and
Hmm.
drink a lot of Gatorade because that's supposed to help flush it out, and also the protein's supposed to help, like, I don't know, stop the ovaries from leaking. But eventually, it just got so bad where I could barely like walk, and like it was very hard to breathe because the fluid was like all the way up here. So they had me come into the clinic and they drained me. Um, yeah, they basically like they put me under, um, and yeah, drained the fluid somehow. I don't even know exactly. Um, they got like a lot that first time. I went back and got drained 3 times total. Um,
Whoa.
yeah, just because like once they do it and they'll tell you, they're like, we'll do it, you'll feel good, but it will come back. And I was like,
Mm.
that's fine, I just need the relief now. um, so yeah, so it came back obviously, but the draining does kind of help it get better faster.
Mhm.
uh, Third time it was like not even a liter anymore. Like the first time it was like almost 2 liters
Wow.
maybe, or something like that. Yeah, which is like also a little, it makes you a little nervous that you're like doing that and you're pregnant. You're like,
Mhm.
hope
Don't
it,
take it. Yeah, don't drain it out.
yeah, like I hope it stays in there. Um,
Yeah.
but yes, but once that cleared up, pretty much the rest of my pregnancy was smooth sailing.
Well,
Um,
that's good.
yeah, like that was the worst part, which I'm
Mhm.
like, it was pretty bad, but I'm kind of glad we got it out of the way in the beginning. Um,
Yeah. Yeah,
but
so I guess once the pregnancy was positive, I guess what were the emotions that you and Will were going through? Like was it like a big sigh of relief, like, okay, the HCG levels are high, we can breathe, or was it still kind of like a waiting period? I guess how were you guys feeling, getting that positive?
Uh, I think like initially, definitely like just a big sigh of relief because we had
Hmm.
never gotten that call, um, and we had never. I actually never even took a pregnancy test that time,
Hmm.
like never. Like I thought I would even, because I have a bunch under my. I think I still have them under my sink.
Hmm.
Um, I was like, maybe I'll just take one just so I can see 2 dark lines. I never
Yeah.
did. Like, why should I waste? I'm not gonna waste that. I don't even know. But yeah, it was mostly a huge sigh of relief. But then also like you were still trying to feel cautious,
Hmm.
knowing that like you know we want to kind of wait until it was safer,
Hmm.
to start like getting super excited or like sharing with a lot of people. Um,
Yeah.
and so we still waited like the 3 months, like until we're out of the first trimester before we really shared it too broadly. Um,
Hmm.
but like telling my work and everything. Um, but I think once we um, like moved on to the to a regular OB, and we weren't going to specialty doctors, and we had doctors telling us, your pregnancy is looking great, you're healthy, baby's looking healthy. um, I think that's when we finally were able to like kind of get excited and like
Yeah.
really look forward to a real baby coming.
Hmm. Yeah, that's exciting because I know, and what I think is hard about waiting that 3 months, which everyone says you should wait, is that like this is the like finally you get the positive, and it's like you want to shout it to the world,
Yeah.
but there's that wait 3 months thing, which I get, it's hard to hold in all that excitement.
Mhm.
So I'm glad you told me in the beginning
Yeah.
because I mean, obviously we're all so excited. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, you were saying the rest of the pregnancy was pretty smooth.
Yeah. Um, yeah. I mean, luckily, oh my gosh, like I didn't have morning sickness. Like I
Hmm.
can't imagine having that on top of like dealing with the OHSS. I think ugh, that
That
would
would
have
have
been,
been hard.
yeah. Um, so I didn't have that. Just had a lot of hip pain.
Hmm.
A lot
So
of
you weren't, were you at, because I know you were saying you got an OB. Did you still have to go to any specialty doctors, or was it just straight OB throughout the whole pregnancy?
no, like at I think it was at six when I was 6 weeks pregnant. Um, my I was still going to like weekly appointments with the fertility doctor
Hmm.
just to kind of monitor everything. They were still doing scans. Like I was getting weekly ultrasounds, just make sure that the fetus was growing.
Hmm.
Um, and then at the 6 week appointment, my doctor like was like, "Okay, well, sad to say goodbye." And I was like, "Wait, we're done?"
Yeah. No heads up.
um, yeah, nobody told me like this next one's gonna be your last one. Because I'd been going to regular appointments there for 9 months at that point. Um,
Yeah.
it was crazy that we were suddenly graduating. But yeah, once we started going to a regular OB, they're like, it doesn't matter that you had IVF. It it doesn't it doesn't mean you need a special doctor unless
Hmm.
there's there happens to be something else, that's an issue.
Yeah.
Having IVF alone doesn't mean you need a special doctor. So that was kind of nice, I guess. But also, I think I still felt like I wasn't like sitting in the OB's room. I still felt like I was different than the other moms. Like I got here differently,
Hmm.
and it wasn't. I don't know. There's just some, I feel like I'm not the only one who has felt that way. Um,
Hmm. Was it like, because I've heard from some moms that not having, a quote unquote natural pregnancy um, can make people feel, like you were saying, just like an outsider to that type of pregnancy versus
mhm.
your pregnancy.
Yeah, like it's like a weird thing where and I didn't always experience this. I did a little bit where like even though I got pregnant, I would see other pregnant women and still feel this like slight like jealousy or like a
Like a disconnect in a way.
yeah, or like
Hmm.
she probably didn't have to do much to get that way and I had to do so much. And it's like it's a weird thing and like it makes
Hmm.
no sense and it's obviously like not.
I think it makes a lot of sense. I think it's, no one knows how costly all of this stuff is, like both financially, emotionally, mentally. Like you go through a lot with
Yeah,
these, fertility treatments and appointments and everything that, like, yeah, to look at a pregnant woman who, may have just one time try, got pregnant, it's hard. I can see how it's hard to like emotionally feel the same as probably they do, or
yeah,
like, because it's a very different process with both, but a lot of emotions attached to both. But just no one tells you how costly all of that stuff is, and learning about that is like, if you don't have the means to do it, like, what do they do? And it's,
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. And like I try to remind myself that, I don't actually know everybody's story. They could
Hmm.
they could have gone through the same thing as me. So
Right.
that I feel like those feelings didn't last very long.
Hmm.
Um, it was mostly when I was trying to get pregnant. And then suddenly like, seeing people on TV get pregnant so quickly, I was like, it's
Yeah.
not like that.
Right. Yeah, it's frustrating, I'm
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah.
So I know um the big thing that a lot of people assume about IVF is that, like, you can pick the baby's hair color and eye color, and like that's all people use it for, which is obviously not true. But that's the big, I guess, I don't even know the word. Like,
Misconception.
yes.
Yeah.
And, it's like hearing, especially hearing your story and how, like, we kind of followed you throughout the whole thing. That's not what it is at all. It's more of just like, I want a baby. I don't, like, it's just, I want a baby, hair color, eye color, those could be whatever the baby wants it to be.
Yeah.
So where do you think that whole idea came from, that like people think they want to choose?
That part I don't know. I know that like actually one of the common the really one of the really common misconceptions is that with IVF you put in they'll put in multiple embryos and you could end up with like you can end up being octomom, and pretty
Mhm.
much octomom caused that. Like so her story, and I didn't even really know her story until like I read it after I got IVF because um, everyone kept asking me how many embryos we put in. I was like, just one.
Yeah.
um, and my doctor said that like, we just try to get one baby at a time.
Hmm.
Um, that's the healthiest way. That sometimes they'll put in two if you have a history of miscarriage, or you're a lot older and maybe there's a higher chance that it won't work.
Hmm.
Um, but for me, they just put one in. So I read her story and I was like, if you don't know, she went to a fertility doctor. She wanted to be a mom. She wanted a huge family, and she got this doctor to put in, I don't know, like 8 embryos, and I guess that's maybe how many took or something. Um,
Which is now illegal, or maybe it was illegal then.
no, yeah, I think that that doctor got disbarred.
Hmm.
He lost his license um, for doing that because yeah, that's like very dangerous.
Hmm.
It like it could be really, even if you get pregnant with twins, that's when they have you see like a special doctor just to make sure, because there's automatically a higher risk with multiple
Hmm.
babies. So to have 8, it's like crazy. But like her story blew up and it was all over the
Hmm.
news and everybody saw it, and so um, like the whole notion of like a test tube baby, which I hate that too. Like
Yeah.
I don't really
It wasn't even in a tube
no.
to begin with, but also, yeah, it gives a very negative connotation
Yeah.
to the whole process, which is unfair because the whole thing is not a negative process at all. And for people to just kind of assume that without going through it is just, I don't know, it's very careless.
Yeah. And it's just not, you just don't hear all of these details,
Hmm.
exactly how it works. Like, you see it on TV and they just kind of gloss over a lot of those things.
Yeah.
And so, like, I don't totally blame people because it's not like I would have ever looked into exactly what IVF is before I did it. Um,
Hmm.
but at the same time, it doesn't feel great,
Yeah. I mean, it's one of those things that I wish, in the infamous health class sex education courses where they just tell you about the sperm and the egg, that there's also some parts of it with like they could not form in your body, or like the sperm might not attach to the egg, and this is kind of what you should what you should expect, or if you want a baby, these are the different types of processes that you can go through, and then to just know about all of those processes, because you don't just learn about sex education from one video. Like even that, people still don't know anything about their bodies or how sex works. So it's something that I think is lacking so hard, of just not knowing anything about our own bodies, but then also just how the process works for having a baby. And you find out when you're in it, which is
yeah.
not the right time to find out. You got to find out before. And
Yeah.
how do you even know before unless someone kind of forces you to learn about it in school?
Yeah.
So yeah, that's hard. But I think so. What I wanted to ask was, going forward with Luna and everything that you went through, how do you like, are you planning to tell her how she was, how she came to be, but then also I think this is a great time for you to kind of educate her on that process and the different processes. Like, how open do you feel like you'll be with her?
Yeah. I think she deserves to know how she came here. Um, Especially at some point, we'll probably have the sex talk.
Mm-hmm.
And but then I don't think I could in good conscience be like, this is how you were born,
Mm-hmm.
because it
You
doesn't.
can't wrap it up all into one thing.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
not that simple. But like also, um also it's a lot of detail, and there's just a lot of stuff that
Mm-hmm.
it will probably be a while until I tell her the whole story.
Yeah.
um
And it can be in pieces, which is how I kind of always think about it. Like, instead of going full hard, like, let's tell you the entire process of how sex works and babies, like, take those baby steps of, like, now with my son who's 4, just telling him that your body is, this, and calling the parts its name, like going into different aspects of it so he knows different parts of his body. And then in a couple of years, this is what your body could do.
Mhm.
So it, like, you don't have to tell the whole story in one, because that's a lot for one kid.
Oh yeah. um yeah, i don't even I don't even know how it would start, but that sounds like a good start. And I think another important one, because um, PCOS and insulin resistance tends to be genetic. Um, that's definitely something that I would want to like keep an eye on with
Mm-hmm.
her, and like I don't know, also have her look out for those symptoms,
Mm-hmm.
um, just so it doesn't go unnoticed for too long, like I think it did with me.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and like a lot of women just like for me, I just assumed, okay, I guess my body just does irregular cycles, and that's just how it is. That's just what's going to do.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know that there was a name for it, or that it could affect my fertility. I had no idea.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so it's just, and maybe maybe by the time she uh, you know this all of this could affect her, maybe there will be better treatments for it. But at least she'll kind of have an idea that it's something to look out for.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, technology changes daily. And I know, it probably wasn't this way when our parents were having kids, and certainly not this way when our grandparents were having kids. So I think
Mhm.
that might contribute to why not a lot of people know about this process too, just because if their parents hadn't gone through it, certainly they weren't talking about it back then. If we're not talking about it now, like,
Mhm.
certainly they weren't talking about it then. So, there is that piece where people don't know, and don't know what to say. But I think moving forward, this is a good launching pad for a lot of, an open window for people to kind of start talking about it, educate their kids on it. Like, now that I know the process you went through, educating my kids on, like, what that process might look like for them. And
Mhm.
having you as a resource, I think, would be, so mind opening for them, because it's something I had no idea about until you went through it. And it's unfortunate, sad, but I'm also really happy in a way that I got to see this process and know exactly what it's like.
Mhm.
um, because it's a hard journey, and it's not something that I would have known about, I don't think, until someone I know went through it. So
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, me too.
yeah.
um,
But I appreciate you sharing the story, because I know that it can be hard, and I know it's not something that everybody wants to talk about. Um, but I appreciate you being open about it. And in closing, what are you going to do for Luna's birthday?
yeah. So I think we're gonna do like a Zoom party.
Yeah.
um, so in Korean, so my husband's Korean. Um, and I don't know why I call him my husband. You know this, Will. Um, and so she's half Korean. So in Korean culture, the first birthday, they do a ceremony called doljabi. I'm probably pronouncing that wrong. Um, and so it's where she's gonna wear her hanbok, which is really cute. It's like it's like a formal Korean dress. She has a one that she got from Addie, her cousin, Will's sister's daughter. She wore it, I think, at her 1 year birthday. And so I think we haven't tried it on her yet, but I think she's going to wear that. Um, oh yeah, so the ceremony is we put a few items in front of her, and it's things like a paintbrush and a stethoscope or like a microphone,
A gavel.
a gavel. Oh, a gavel's a good one. Things that represent uh, a profession, or like what her future could look like.
Mm-hmm.
And so you put her in front of them, and then just have her crawl towards them, and whichever one she crawls towards and grabs is the one that presumably will be her future.
What if she grabs two things? Is there anything that they say about that, like a paintbrush and a stethoscope?
I don't know. I don't know if I've ever seen. I mean, I guess I've only been to two, which is
Yeah.
Will's sister's two kids.
Mm-hmm.
I think I don't think either of them grabbed two, but they were. I think they were like crawling. So like
Okay.
crawling, you really got like the one hand,
Yeah, that's true. That's true. I can
but
just see Luna
would crawl
grabbing two things.
towards. I know. Well, she would, right? She would like crawl over, probably pull up to sit. So then she has two hands, and then
I guess whichever one she grabs first.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, so there was one time where I think it was one of Will's sister's kids, where they went for like the stethoscope, and everyone got excited, and then she switched over to the paintbrush, and we're like,
No. That's funny.
yeah,
Oh, that's really cute. That's hard that you can't celebrate her first birthday with like a big party. I know we're missing it,
yeah,
but a Zoom party, and after this is all over, hopefully it's not already her second birthday, but I think things will cool down and we can all celebrate her and celebrate you for your first year as being a mom.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I think that's what our plan is. We'll do the Zoom party, um, and then hopefully when all of this blows over, maybe we can have another delayed one
Mm-hmm.
in person.
Yeah. And we have all of the Minnie Mouse things for Olive's birthday that missed, my daughter.
Yeah.
And so we still have it in hopes that we'll have another birthday party for her, but we'll see what happens. We let
Yeah.
her dress up as Minnie Mouse on the day of. She didn't care. She just ate a cupcake on the toilet and she was fine. We're potty training, so it's not that weird. um, well, yeah. Well, thank you again for joining us. And yeah, I hope this helps other moms. I'm sure it will, because I've known a lot of moms that have had different types of fertility issues, different types of ways that they came to have their babies. And a lot of them wish that they heard a story similar to theirs. And, there's just not a lot unless you go deep dive into it. So hopefully this helps a lot of moms um, feel not alone in the process if they're going through it or if they went through it. So yeah, thank you for being open, raw, and honest.
Yeah. I think that was my goal, is that, when I was going through this, I didn't have anybody, I didn't have a frame of reference.
Mm-hmm.
And so I've always wanted to be open about it and talk about it. I'll, like, if it comes up, I won't lie about it.
Mm-hmm.
I'll mention it. I don't go around like announcing that I did IVF, but I won't hide it, because
Mm-hmm.
I just want to normalize it.
Yeah.
It's common. I think it's like 1 in 8 women will experience like PCOS or endometriosis or any number of infertility causing conditions. And you probably know someone that is going through it and you just don't know.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
I'm happy to share if that helps anybody.
Yeah. Thank you. I'm sure it will help a lot of moms. So I appreciate it. And we'll talk to you soon.
Okay.
All right. Bye.
If you want to share your story with us, send us an email at motherhooditr@gmail.com or send us a message on our Facebook page, Motherhood in the Raw RVA. We look forward to hearing more stories from you. Thanks for listening.